Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this very last session for the year. And I'm glad you could set aside the time to be here for 30 minutes. I'm hoping that this will be well worth it and you'll have just really enjoy this and maybe find something here that you really haven't thought of before that'll help you change. That is the topic, learning to embrace change. How to navigate what comes. And just looking at the title, life happens. Sometimes things happen that we embrace and love and enjoy, and we certainly are blessed and glad when that goes on. Sometimes things happen that we don't really want to happen. I think learning to embrace those things and learn from them and navigate them is an important part of life. And then there's the day to day, where either we kind of make some things happen or we don't. Probably that's where I focus as a coach the most, is in that response that people have to what's happening. So we're going to talk about that today. But again, I'm so glad you're here. This is the last session for the year. All of those sessions are on the website. The link to those to the YouTube, that's at no cost to you. So I would encourage you to go to the website, mentordavebeam.com, and just look at the recorded links and pick out some topics and continue to enjoy these. So we always start with our rules of the game. And let's talk about these rules with regards to change. Own it. That's an interesting concept for change because we can't control things. I think the older you get, the more you realize you don't control your spouse, you don't control your children, you don't control your boss, you don't control your job, you don't control the economy, you don't control a lot of things. In fact, I would say, in a sense, everything. But what we can do is we can own our response. We can own how we choose to be and what we choose to do given the sea we have to navigate. And we'll talk about navigation here in a moment. So that's when we talk about embracing change, it's embracing our responsibility and our ownership of what comes to us versus just throwing up our hands and giving up, being in some form of denial and not facing things, blaming other people for our circumstances or just making excuses. Why do that when, as a human being, we can respond differently? We can choose our response. We can own it. We can be accountable. And so today, with regards to this concept of change, how can we own it is the question. You can either drop out or participate. If you're going to get everything out of this morning, you want to participate with the presentation. That's taking some notes, that's listening, that's trying not to multitask and really be focused. If you want to participate, get the most out of life, it's participation. And so many people I meet nowadays, it just seems there's a lot of angst and fear and anxiety, and people hold back. I'm encouraging you to embrace your environment, the circumstances you're in, and participate. Don't just get through something, try to get from it. And if you even go in with that mentality, you'll see things that you wouldn't normally see. I think when we get emotional and upset, sometimes we tend not to participate. Embracing is a participation. I want you to embrace change. Third, you've heard stuff like this before. You've read stuff like this before. Maybe some of you almost are junkies. You like these kinds of things. I find them entertaining. I like to listen to people, but pretend like you've never heard a presentation on change. It doesn't mean that all that knowledge that you have and information you've had in the past couldn't be helpful. It just means for this morning, for this 30 minutes, if you'll just set that aside and be curious and open-minded and say, I don't know. I'm just going to find things interesting this morning. I'm not going to judge things quickly. I'm going to just consider them and let Dave kind of just challenge my mind. So that's my encouragement. And there, finally, we certainly want to have some fun. One guy I heard say it this way: if it's can't have fun, I don't want to do it. And I tend to agree with that. If I can't enjoy something and there's a way I can get out of it and not do it, I probably will. I think that's most people. The key to keeping that ownership in balance with that fun thing is fun is a choice. I can actually enjoy challenges. I can enjoy things that are difficult. It's a different kind of enjoyment. It isn't necessarily a pleasure, but I'm growing. I'm getting better. I'm embracing the challenge. I'm standing up to it. I'm allowing the circumstances to be something in my life that will be helpful. And that is a mindset. So those are our rules. Let's get into the program now. Main goal is to understand change this morning. I'm going to give you 6 different words that we're going to look at. And I think out of those, your mind will start to open to having a better understanding of change. The first one is entropy. I'm going to give a definition of each of these words, and then we're going to talk about a concept that kind of illustrates the word. Entropy, dictionary definition, is a process of degradation or running down or a trend to disorder. If you have grandchildren and you have a car and you take them places and they're young, your car usually doesn't end up more orderly and cleaner after the trip. It usually tends to disorder. If you have a bag of marbles and you pour them out, they don't roll onto the desk and line up. They scatter. This is just a principle of thermodynamics that systems run down. Everything is running down. Everything is going towards a disorder. That's a trend. That's a fact. And so as we try to understand change, we need to understand entropy. The garden. Let's talk about the garden. You look at a plot of land. You've got some rocks. You've got some dirt. You've got some things to do. You have to dig that up. You have to pull the clumps out. You have to work the clumps out. You have to cultivate the soil. Probably have to add some nourishment to the soil. You have to till it. You have to plant the seeds. As they pop through, the little plants pop through, you have to weed the garden. As the plants grow, you have to prune the plants. What are we saying? What if I don't do all those things? Well, entropy wins. In other words, if you don't put some effort and some force towards something, things don't just stay the same. But if I stay the same and I don't act on things, they tend to get worse. So this idea of embracing and understanding change, I need to have that participation in change. I need to be involved in it. I need to be active in it so that I can move against entropy. It's an upstream force, and it's a bit uncomfortable to work against the natural tendency of everything to scatter. I just want you to get the concept. So that's our first word. Our second word this morning is inertia. It's the other part of entropy. And let me read you the definition here. Inertia is a property of matter by which it remains at rest or in a uniform motion in the same straight line unless acted upon by some external force. That's me. It's the recliner. I tend to stay still in the recliner until something acts upon me, like my brain or my thought of I need to get up and do something. My wife perhaps needs some assistance or some help. I have some opportunities in front of me. I have some phone calls to make. I have a job to do. I have some children running around that need some assistance and need some focus. In other words, entropy says if you don't act on anything, you don't participate in the change, the natural change is it goes downhill. Inertia says your tendency is to stay just how you are, not to change. That's a concept that's just true, that bodies at rest tend to stay at rest. And when I'm in the recliner, I tend to stay there. As an older guy, sometimes too long and fall asleep, and then my neck hurts and I have to get up and go to bed. You've been there. What are we saying here? If I understand that, if it's to be, it's up to me. I need to act. I need to take action. And I'm finding more in my mature coaching. I've been coaching for about 22 years. That really is the key to progressing and getting better, is doing something. I find people tend to talk about things, think about things, feel guilty about things, get upset about things, but they don't do much. And if we'll just do, sometimes we'll make some mistakes, but we can always learn something when we're in action. But we have to break that inertia, because if we don't break that inertia, things will slowly and sometimes rapidly decline. Hence the recliner. Okay, let's look at the next word. Leverage, the 80-20 rule. Leverage is the action of a lever or the mechanical advantage gained by it. Dave, this sounds like a physics lesson. Well, it's just the principles of life. And here's the 80-20 rule, which demonstrates leverage. Small changes can make big differences. Small changes can make big differences. It depends on where you're putting the fulcrum in the lever. So what are we saying? If I'm proactive, not reactive, and I engage my prefrontal cortex in my thought process when I'm dealing with change, it's best to discern the 20% that makes the 80% difference. Here's how it works in business. 20% of the customers bring in 80% of the revenue. 20% of the employees typically do 80% of the work. Now, that's not a good thing, but it's true. If you can identify the 20%, 20% of your thoughts are going to create 80% of the great results. So it's slowing things down and discovering the 20%, or even creating the 20%. Here's the question. In this circumstance where change needs to occur, what is the one thing I could do that would make the most difference? Now, that's a pretty simple question. Didn't say it was easy to answer all the time, but people are just like squirrels on caffeine. They're busy, 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 running about. And if they would just slow down and take a breath and ask a good question and re-engage that amazing biocomputer called their brain, that thinking part of the brain, and determine what is the thing here that will make the most difference. Because you can be busy, busy, busy doing the 80% that only gets the 20% results, or you can figure out, maybe get some other people, get a coach, get a team together, determine what is that one or two or three things we could do that will make all the difference, and prioritize. I think time management's about prioritization. Work on the few things that make the biggest difference. That's leverage. That makes change, that makes you better when change is occurring, when you're working and focusing on the right things. And again, if you all want to talk about some details of your situation and really dig down into the particulars of your change that's occurring or where you are, I would love to have a conversation with you. Habit. It certainly is a word that we need to consider when we're thinking about change. Habit is an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary. Here's one of those leverage things we can do when dealing with change. Choose your habits. Now, the best habit of all, I'm a little biased, but I think is I look at every day, John Wooden, the coach, said, make every day your masterpiece. I consider every day, one single day, my life. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm born. And in the evening, I basically collapse and die. And so I have this one day to live. Now, think about it in a daytime. See, I'll tell you where we get bogged down. We get all caught up in our future, in our heads, and worried about everything that's coming. You can't do anything about tomorrow today, really. Or we get so depressed and bitter, or at least discouraged by our past. And if you could truly divorce yourself from your past and your future and be very present today and make today your masterpiece, how do you go at that, Dave? What do I do to make today my masterpiece? I think a morning habit is critical. How you begin your day is so critical. And I'm strongly recommending and suggesting and coaching you that your day ought to begin in a very proactive way. What do I mean? Most people are getting up late. Most people are running around crazy trying to get ready to go somewhere or do something. And I understand this is entropy. This is the disorder and chaos that will normally be present in your life. If you will take some ownership and say, I'm going to figure out a way, because this 20% of the day will give me 80% of the results today. I'm going to take this top hour of the day or even 30 minutes, and I'm going to create some sustained change. Every day, I'm going to maybe exercise for 15 minutes. Every day, I'm going to get on my knees and pray or open the scriptures if you're of that bent. Or I'm going to read something inspirational that will charge my day. I'm going to listen to a certain podcast. And I'm going to journal. I've started journaling again, and it's just wonderful. Just a little brief journal. But I'm just saying that morning, you're setting your mind and your attention towards that day. And if you get that going every single day, you just practice. It's all about practice. I just practice those behaviors. I define them and practice them time after time after time after time. Pretty soon my day would be abnormal without it. Pretty soon it's like tying my shoes or putting on my socks or brushing my teeth. It's just what I do every morning. And now I've developed a 20% habit that'll give me 80% of the results. That's a great way to deal with a very changing environment that I proactively designate a time of the day to prepare. It's creating a capacity for me to produce. Most of the day I'm producing, but I need to have some time where I increase my production capacity. And if you do it regularly every day, doesn't have to be a big deal. You're setting the tone for a great day every single day, every single day, every single day. It's that sustained change and that habit, that little 20% thing you're doing that will totally transform your direction in life. Well, fear. I think we need to talk about fear as it relates to change. Why don't people change is a question that I get quite often. I think often it's fear. Fear is a story in your head that is not even true. Now, there may be some truth to it, but the fact is we make up things, and typically people don't make up good things. And all those things are swimming in our mind, and that creates an emotion and a feeling. The definition I have here from the dictionary is this: fear is an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or the awareness of danger. We are designed to protect ourselves. We are designed to protect those we love. So we have this radar going on, looking for danger, looking for problems, looking for issues. That's all by design, by divine design. That's a good thing. But a misuse of it is when we start to find danger behind every rock, and they become excuses, and they become reasons not to engage and to come against the entropy and to get out of the recliner and to choose a path. And we start to get paralyzed by our fear. And it's a story. It's just a story about the future, an anxious story about the future, which we know nothing of. I mean, we can project and have a sense about what might happen, but we're making up a story that's causing us to feel a certain way that keeps us in the recliner. It keeps us from responding. And so how do you deal with that? Well, you can just get up and move anyway. That's probably the easiest way or the most direct way. But if you're having some trouble with that, you need to talk out that fear and find out how much of that's a false expectation appearing real. FEAR. How much of this is true? How much of this is just made up in my head? And what you'll find out is that you've made up a big story in your head that you have no idea if that's really true. The only way to find out is to get out of the recliner and go for it. Then our last word here this morning is navigate. This is a beautiful word. Let me give you the definition first. Navigate is to plan and direct the route or course of a ship, aircraft, or other form of transportation, especially by using instruments or maps. So I'm out in my sailboat. I don't control the wind. I don't control the weather. I do control the sail. And I do control the rudder. And the fact is, we talked about this when we started. I don't control much of anything outside of me, but I can control my rudder and my sail. So how am I going to set my rudder and my sail? Well, I need a map, or I need instruments to tell me where I am. So what's your map? And I'm going to ask even a stronger question. What's your daily map? In that morning habit, how are you lining out your day? Not hour by hour, minute by minute. Life happens. I'm talking about 2 things or even 1 thing for that day that would absolutely take you in the direction that you want to go. Are you proactively choosing, thinking, choosing, and then committed and doing something every day to take you in the direction you want to go? What is your plan? What is your map? Where do you get your orders, your marching orders? If you don't find them, if you don't create them, if you don't seek them, then whatever rushes into your day is what happens. And that's living a life in a sailboat with no sail and no rudder, and the winds and the waves pushing around, and it just gets nowhere and often capsizes and you drown. It's a way to be very paralyzed and drowning. So it starts with a sense of mission. of purpose, of why, of how to serve. How do you want to serve this world? How do you want to serve other people? What kind of person do you want to be? And it's getting a clear map. You know, a map is a piece of paper, or at least I guess it's electronic now a lot of times. But it's programming your GPS. Where do I want to go? So when the wind starts to blow and the waves start to rise, I can set my sail and my rudder in the moment, in the day, to take me, use all that, get from it, not just get through it, use all that to take me in the direction I want to go. That's how you navigate change. You get a map, and then you realize you don't control the weather, but as it comes, you navigate it based on your map. Now, this all sounds great on paper. The real change that occurs that's positive in your life happens in application. And when I work with people one-to-one and sit and talk with them, that's what we work on is application. We work on these principles, but then how are we going to apply this to the team situation we're facing, the communication situation, the financial situation, the business situation, the organizational situation? It's full of entropy and disorder. People are staying at rest. It's not very leveraged and efficient. We need different habits installed. All that comes into this, but that's proactively called leadership. It's leading change. You can't necessarily produce it, but you can navigate it, and you can be a leader, and others can follow you as you navigate change. So that's our presentation this morning. I'll give you this one quickly. That this is our formula for change: D times V plus first steps. FS is greater than R. Write it down. I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest auctioneer version. R is resistance. We've seen there is a built-in resistance to change. Something needs to overcome that for it to occur because of inertia. What needs to occur are three things. I need to be dissatisfied, D, where I am. I need to have a vision, V, like a map of where I want to go. And then I need to get out of the recliner and take some first steps. If I know what I want to get away from, if I know what I want to go towards, and then I start to take those steps, that's how I overcome the resistance to change. And that inertia is broken and we're on the way. So, free on request. I'll give you that slide. It'll just remind you of these concepts. Just email me. I've got also some related articles on change that I've written through the years. I'll assemble a set of those 4 or 5 articles. They're about 1-page articles. Send those to you as well. And that's my email, davebeam@mentordavebeam.com. All you have to do to get all of that is just drop me a note and say, send me the information from today. And then you can wish me Merry Christmas. That would be a joy. And I wish you a Merry Christmas. I'm not saying Happy Holidays. I'm talking about Christmas, which has the name Christ in it, because that is the joy that a Savior came for a purpose, to die for our sins, and he's now risen, and we could celebrate him together. So that's my Merry Christmas. That's my gift to you. And we'll see you next year. I'm going to be sending out the schedule soon. I haven't chosen the topics yet. If you got a good topic you'd like to hear about, offer that to me. We may just show up on the next year's schedule. Thank you.